Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to a bit of a surprise TII podcast this Friday evening as Rangers have announced their first signing of the summer before the season has ended with Brazilian left-back Hefty. I think that's how we're going to go with pronouncing his name at this moment in time. So Brazilian left-back Hefty has signed on the dotted line. There was some discussion as to whether he would stay at his loan club, Apoel Nicosia, but he's decided to come and join Rangers, and he will be a left back as we head into the new season. Joining me to discuss the new signing and potentially some of the cynical reasons as to why it might have been announced this evening, I'm joined by Ross Chalmers. How are you doing, Ross?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Craig. This is a bit of a surprise for me. I was having a quiet one tonight ahead of the game tomorrow, and yeah, here we are talking about a signing already. I did not expect to be in this position, to be honest. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumours about Hefty over the last couple of days. I think we've all felt this is going to go through at some point. And I think we actually spoke about it earlier about when the announcement would be. And I said, no chance it's not going to be before a cup final. And there you go. I'm wrong again. So clearly Rangers heard me and they just thought, we'll just throw this one out tonight. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's a weird timing, I think, but doesn't take away from the signing of the player. I think that's a really positive one.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually to let people behind the curtain a little bit. This is the second time I've recorded a Hefty signing video. I actually recorded one with Tommy back in January when we thought he was going to sign for Rangers, and that was obviously delayed as Apoel tried to cling on to him for the rest of the season. But we're here. We signed on the dotted line, and he's already learning to speak English if the Rangers Twitter videos are anything to go by. But Ross, left back has been a much maligned position for us this year, potentially longer than this year. We've obviously had Ridvan and Borna Barisic there. Ridvan's been positive when he's been in the team, but he's been injured quite a lot. Borna Barisic has been on the downward spiral for maybe 2 seasons now. I think it's fair to say, and is heading out of the club. What's your initial reaction to this signing? Hefty is obviously a young player still. He's South American. We're signing him from Fluminense, even though he was on loan in Cyprus. So what's your initial thoughts on the signing?
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised because I think we all felt this one was close in January, and I think the club are pushing for that. And I think at the same time, there was a lot of rumours about Ridvan Yilmaz leaving the club, and I think really at that point, if Hefty had came in, I think Ridvan Yilmaz might have left the club. So I'm not surprised that the club have tried to push it through at this point. My initial thoughts are he looks a really good player. I think I said in the podcast that was on the other night that I maybe not expect him to come in and be first choice straight away. But of course, a big club like ours, you need competition in that area. And I think we've all felt for a long time that Borna doesn't really provide that competition anymore. We're not really satisfied when he is in the side. And then you look at Ridvan Yilmaz, I think you're right. He's been really, really positive. When we've seen him at a lot of points this season, but unfortunately, he picks up injuries, and we just can't afford to have that. So I really like the club are going early with the recruitment. We've seen it in the January window as well. I think Fabio Silva was announced just after Christmas, maybe. So they went early at that point as well. I think we all realise there's a lot of work to get done in the summer. So it's really positive, I think, to get the player in already. They've clearly identified he's a player that they want to work with, and they've went and got it done. So yeah, I'm really happy about this one. I'm sure we'll come on to it, but the profile player looks really good, really exciting as well. Like a really, really aggressive left back, which it looks like that's the type of player that Clement wants. He wants aggressive fullbacks, so he's got one in already, and I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Yeah, but you touched a wee bit on the timing of the signing in your first sort of answer in terms of here we are on a Friday night, the night before an Old Firm Scottish Cup final. The music heading into this Scottish Cup final hasn't been great from Rangers fans. It's not been positive. There's a lot of negativity heading into the game. Is it too cynical to say that this is maybe designed to lift some spirits? William N01 said the board are revealing the signing tonight, just in case it doesn't go to plan tomorrow. Is that too cynical of you, or is that part of it, do you think?
It's hard not to let your mind wander that way, isn't it? I think Williams made a good point there. I think it was kind of what I thought originally as well. It's like, that's a very strange timing for this. And look, any transfer brings a bit of positivity. So maybe it is planted from the club. The other side of this is, like I said earlier on, I think we've all knew this was coming, and there was a lot of leaks about it. And you've seen yesterday Fabrizio Romano tweeting about it, and when he gets hold of it, the transfer is done, right? Or it's very, very close to being done. So maybe the club just feel it's one that they've done all the media for it. It was rumoured he landed in Glasgow yesterday, or maybe even this morning, and he's completed his medical and things like that. They maybe just think it's just time to get this out and we move on to the next target. And yeah, it does bring a bit of positivity amongst the fan base, which I think we do need at the moment going into a game like this. So, look, I stand by it. It is a bit of a weird timing for me, but I'm not going to complain too much. Ultimately, Rangers have signed a player. They've signed a good player, as it looks like to me. So it doesn't really matter when it comes out, does it?
No, absolutely doesn't. As long as he's signed for Rangers and he's a positive player that fits the profile that Niels Coppen and Philippe Clement are targeting this summer, then absolutely, no matter when they sign, get them in the door, and the earlier the better. To be honest, when it comes to me, I imagine all the viewers and listeners will be hearing a lot from us in terms of transfer reaction podcasts over this summer, given the amount of change we think is going to happen. So that this is the first one in a long line, hopefully, that brings about that that much needed difference to what we've seen over the last few years. Let's look a wee bit at Hefty in terms of his style of play, what type of player he is. Huge credit to our very own John Walker for a lot of the research that's gone in behind this. If you've not seen his threads on X, make sure you go check out his account. First thing that strikes me, Ross, is he's 6 foot tall. That's over the lack of height is something that has been aimed at Ridvan quite a bit. We've seen Hearts in particular using that as a tactic to try and target the left back area, their right hand side, due to that lack of height that Ridvan has. I actually think Ridvan has been okay so far in terms of dealing with that physicality, but having a 6 foot tall powerhouse of a defender at left back definitely gives a wee bit of a helping hand in that area, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm one of the people that really isn't too bothered by Ridvan's height, to be honest. I always think with a player like that, he's likely been small for his whole career, so you kind of learn how to deal with that kind of height differential. So I'm not too bothered when it comes to that for Ridvan, and I agree with you that he seems to use his body well in kind of aerial duels, and he doesn't look out of place. I think that's the best thing to put about it. But yeah, I think physicality is always an important thing, especially in our domestic league. Physicality is huge. I think that's why we've seen a lot of the positive sides from Dujon Sterling, because on that other side, he is really physical. He's quite tall as well. And I think you've seen that really come to fruition this season when he's been in the side. He's been able to use that physicality. Of course, we've not had a lot of him in his actually natural position, but you get what I'm meaning. That type of fullback is maybe something we're looking at. So yeah, the height isn't the main thing for me, but I certainly, I won't turn my head away from Rangers looking at physical profiles. I think that's something we do need in domestic football. A lot of the other things that you highlighted earlier in terms of his dribbling statistics and things like that, that's really interesting as well, because that's obviously the mould of Ridvan. So I think when Philippe Clement first came in, it looked like he didn't really fancy Ridvan. He maybe didn't see him as being his type of fullback. He's ended up looking like he's his favourite choice. So maybe he thinks now, okay, I actually like that profile of player. I'd like to go and get another one, because ultimately I can't keep Ridvan fit. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think this is going to be a really interesting summer for Philippe Clement in terms of how he molds this Rangers team into his own. I think we all believe that he's maybe not had everything he's needed to play the style he wants. But I think he'll look at this summer and think, okay, I've got an opportunity now to rebuild the squad and change a lot of the things. And maybe Hefty is the first sign of that. Maybe we all go back to the really, really aggressive fullbacks that we had under Steven Gerrard. That was a big part of our play. Maybe Philippe Clement sees that as well, and Hefty fits that mould.
He definitely does. And I think one of the key things under Gerrard was actually the pace that we had at fullback. That seems to have tailed off with both James Tavernier and Borna Barisic. And
that's what happens with age, Craig. We know that ourselves, innit?
I'm 32, but I've been towing a caravan since I was 21, so it's absolutely fine. But yes, I think that one of the things that does strike me is the pace that Hefty has, and that allows him to be able to push higher. We see Borna Barisic caught out consistently with balls over the top because he doesn't have that pace to get back from the high line that Rangers hold quite a lot. So that's really positive. Some stats from John Walker here: 3.7 interceptions per 90. He's obviously keen to get in front of the winger, but he's also he's good at reading the game. Is what that tells me, I think, as well.
Pressing sounds like he's good at pressing.
Yeah, good in the air. 60% of aerial duels won. Good at long pass distribution. I think that switch of play is something that we've missed quite a lot when we're trying to move teams about and shift around that. Those two banks of five low block type teams. I think quick shifts of play can be really important. We've seen that with Connor Goldson in previous seasons when he's been able to lift that ball over the top. The ball to Joe Aribo at Tynecastle will always live in my memory as one of the best passes I think I've seen in a long time. Dribbling is another thing that comes out from looking at him. 41% dribbling success. That suggests to me he's more in the Ridvan mould than he is in the Borna Barisic mould, and Rangers fans will have seen both play this season, and I definitely felt that Ridvan was how I wanted to see our fullbacks play. I don't know, what was your thoughts on that, and do you see it as a positive that seems to be more his style?
Well, in terms of the dribbling, I think we've all felt at points this season Rangers have a real lack of ball carrying in their side, and I think that is because they've not had any wingers, and like you said, Ridvan has unfortunately not been in the side the majority of the season. James Tavernier, he's never really been that type of fullback that someone's going to grab the ball and dart forward with it and beat men. He's someone that picks up really nice areas, has a really good delivery. Borna Barisic is the same, of course. I understand physically he's lost it completely over the last couple of years, but he was a fullback that did have the physical attributes to get up and down, but he wasn't someone that was going to, dribble by men and beat men on 1v1s, and maybe that's the mold that Philippe Clement's looking to move to with a type of fullback like this. So I think the dribbling statistics, like I said earlier, are really encouraging, and it is going to be interesting to see what Philippe Clement does with this side now. And I think it's something we've really lacked, that ability to carry the ball. I think that's so important. I think we've seen that at times, and you're going to be like, that's a weird, but Fabio Silva is giving us that at times, that ball carrying, but he doesn't really seem to have the end product. On the other side, Ross McCausland, good ball carry as well, but maybe sometimes physically lacks that to beat his man 1v1. So I think if we can get more of these players into our side, it gives us more of an option. And especially if you're playing against side at domestic level where they are sitting deep and they're making it difficult, it's huge to have outlets that can take men on 1v1 and beat them. If Hefty can beat his man and get to the byline, you're opening up space for the ball into the box over a cutback. So I think it's really, really encouraging. And like I said before, I'm really intrigued to see how Clement sets his side up next season with these type of players.
Yeah, our very own JB says we need to be more physical, quicker, and more aggressive on and off the ball. I think that's something we've all noticed this year, especially, I'd say, Ross, especially since the drop-off we've seen pretty much since the Motherwell game at the start of March. I felt the team were being more physical and more aggressive in that initial period under Philippe Clement, but we seem to have reverted to type a lot. And the sort of physicality and the aggressiveness seems to have disappeared from, especially our defending. So is that something you're excited to see, or appears to be returning? We've got some comments about Jose Cordoba as well, potentially signing, which we'll come to in a bit in terms of the profile of player we're looking at. But is that something that excites you, that we'll be getting more of that back into the team?
Yeah, I think we all want to see a Rangers team that's front foot, aggressive, presses from the front, looks to win the ball, all opportunities, looks to move the ball forward quickly. I think we're lacking a lot of that at the moment. And I think we've seen at certain times over the last couple of months where the team have tried to press high in moments and we've not been anywhere near it. So I don't think we have the players in the squad at the moment that can play that type of football. But I do think that is the type of football that Philippe Clement wants to play. He wants to play in aggressive mode. I think Kyle goes on about it all the time, the kind of 4 pillars that he spoke about in his initial press conference. He wants a team that's aggressive off the ball, but he also wants to be assured in terms of when the ball turns over, you've got a good structure to win it back. And I actually think that is the main thing that we've had an issue with lately. We don't have a good structure off the ball. So when the ball's lost, we don't have men in the right positions to try and win the ball and press high. And if you do have a squad with more physicality in it, you're able to cover the ground a lot quicker. And maybe those deficiencies are masked by that. So yeah, look, I'm all for a Rangers team that is more front foot, aggressive, and looks to press high, because I think we all watch a lot of football, right? All the best teams play that way. Like all the best teams in every league, you can go all across Europe. The teams at the top of the league play aggressive front foot football. They're pressing from their front. They want to attack as much as possible. And I just don't think we have the players for that right now. So again, bring them players with the capability to do that, can press high, can also recover, which is something that's important as well. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, I'm dreading watching us attempt to do that in the Scottish Cup final tomorrow, but probably unsuccessfully. But that's another matter altogether.
Wait to bring us back down to earth.
Yeah. Let's go back to the left back situation. That was much more enjoyable to talk about in terms of looking forward. What do you think it means for Rangers at left back? We were at the Dundee game at Ibrox, where Borna Barisic was trudging, I think is the best description, around the park at the end, and he looked a solemn figure. So it looks like he's on his way out the door, and there won't be any new contract offer. Ridvan's an interesting one, because I think I agree with you. I think Philippe Clement does like him, but there will be interest from him. There seems to be consistent interest from him, and given the fact that we need to I guess boost the transfer pot with funds, and if we get a good offer for pretty much any player, you're going to see them out the door this summer. Ridvan will be one who I think we're at least tested on to see how much we want to keep him. Where do you see Hefty fitting in? Firstly, if Ridvan stays, and then if he doesn't.
Well, I think he'll certainly provide competition, which is something I think we've all felt at points this season. We've not had the squad depth, and there's been people playing really that shouldn't have been playing. I mean, you look at John Lundstrom the last couple of months, he's really had to play because we've not really had anyone else, or the manager doesn't trust a Raskan to come in and replace. So it's great to have more depth in that area. Again, you know that it's a Philippe Clement and a Niels Koppen signing, and I think it's always good for the manager to get his own players, young boy as well, that can also develop. So the left back position is an interesting one for me. Like I said, I don't think he comes in as an automatic first choice, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because he looks a player of quality that can develop, like I said. So it's going to be an interesting one. Hopefully Ridvan stays for me. I really like Ridvan as a player. I'd like him to stay, and I'd like him to have another season here and kick on with someone like Hefty behind him, pushing him on, because I think you'll get the best out of both players in that way. But I think you've made a good point there in terms of Ridvan, and it probably does go for the whole of the squad. I think if offers come in for these type of players like a Ridvan, who we haven't been able to get on the pitch enough this season, I think the club will take it, because again, he isn't a Philippe Clement player. It's not his signing. So he might look at that and going, okay, well, I can't get the boy fit half the time anyway, so I'll take the 4 or 5 million that we're being offered here, and I can reinvest this in another left back. And there's only one to find now, because you've already brought Hefty in. So, and of course, there's Robbie Fraser sitting there as well. Whether he signs a new contract, we're not sure yet. So, I think it's going to be intriguing to see what happens with Ridvan, because I think you made a good point there. I do think the manager really likes him, but I think as a support, we've all felt the frustration in the last couple of days with Ridvan, because you felt you've gotten back now to a good point. He's going to come in, he's going to play this game, and he's injured again. Now, of course, that proved me wrong tomorrow when it comes to 3 o'clock. He could be in the lineup, right? But I think we're all led to believe he's probably not going to make it. We can't have that for the majority of the players in the squad, and Ridvan seems to fall under that as well. So, yeah, maybe Cologne will look at this and go, right, I've got one in, I need to go and find another now, and if a bid comes in for Ridvan Yilmaz, we'll let him go.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo your statements around Ridvan. And next season, I would really like Ridvan to stay. I think he would be the initial starting left back for me. I think he's shown enough quality this year when he has been on the pitch. The disappointment is, like we've seen again this week, one injury after another, a couple of games back and injured again. That's a huge frustration. So I think if the club can cash in on Ridvan, I agree with you. I think they might as well. Dave says, loving the route it looks like we're going down. Him and Cordoba look like great prospects and potential to make money on them down the line. This is what we need to do. The Cordoba Dave's mentioned there is Jose Cordoba from Levski Sofia, Panamanian centre half, left-sided, I believe. Lots of interest in him, it seems, so there's no guarantee that Rangers will be able to get that sign over the line. But in terms of the profile of player, Ross, that we're seeing early on in this window, does that encourage you? I think we've spoken before, and we were talking about we need like 4 or 5 more like Diomande, who are up and coming and positive and trying to make their way in the game, but are real quality and real have the ability to really push on to the next level, and almost Rangers can get the benefit of developing them in that way. Is that kind of the route you see us going down with these early signings?
It's an interesting one, because I think when Niels Coppens came in and his record so far, I think he's done quite well. I think the 3 that he signed in January, I think there's a lot of debate around Fabio Silva, but we've seen it straight away with Mohamed Diomande. You've signed a really good player there. Like, he can kick on and go to another level for me. And Oscar Cortez, young boy, but as soon as he came into the side, you thought, wow, this boy's got something special. So I have confidence in the approach from the club. What I will say on the other side of that is, and I'm sure a lot of the support are the same, we've been kind of burned the last couple of years with transfers, so I'm a little bit apprehensive about things, and I'll maybe not be looking at those YouTube compilations maybe as much as everyone does, because I'll just wait and see how he fits into Rangers and the type of player you're getting at that point, and whether he actually fits what we want here. But yeah, I think it's encouraging. I think you've got someone at head of recruitment now, and kind of Niels Coppens, that understands the market and where to look for certain players, and maybe kind of untapped markets that do have players that we can consider going for, that maybe isn't a huge outlet for us, but you bring them in that raise the quality, and then you hope that they come in, make an impact, you develop them, and you sell them on. Because I think we all realise now that is the model we need to go down. For us to improve as a club, we have to constantly be trying to be in this, this market of selling players. So you have to bring players in with a certain value to start with, but you want to try and develop them to get more out of them. But yeah, I would caveat as well, saying you need to obviously you have to have experience in your squad as well. But I do think the club are going down a slightly different route of recruitment with Niels Coppens at the helm, should I say. That gives me encouragement. As for each individual player, I'll just wait till they get here before I jump in, kind of head first, because what we all seen last summer, and a lot of the hype around a lot of the players we'd signed, and they've maybe not reached the heights. So yeah, I'll maybe just tailor off a wee bit and wait till I see them in a Rangers shirt before I go mad.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if anyone's listened to or read Cyril Desser's comments from his BBC interview, which I think is questionable in itself, if anyone has listened to or heard that one, you'll see how much the reaction of Rangers support can positively or negatively impact a player, especially a new one adapting to building his own IKEA furniture. Ross, just a last question on this one before we wrap up on this Friday evening. This is a very early start. The season hasn't even finished, and we've got a player in the door. Is that an encouraging sign to you, given how much business we feel needs to be done?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it's always that kind of cliche you hear from managers where they're always asked it in press conferences, like, do you want to get your business done early? And actually, Flip Clon answered this brilliantly last week, where he was like, well, I think everyone wants to get their business done early, but it doesn't really work that way. One club is waiting on another to do a deal, that's waiting on another to do a deal. Like, it all depends on the market at that point. But I certainly like that Rangers have identified players early. Whether they get them in early, we'll have to wait and see. But it looks like the recruitment is up and running. Hefty's the first one. Looks like Jose Cordoba is going to be the next one, hopefully. I've seen a bit of interest from him in Turkey today as well. So that one might go on a wee bit. But I do like that we're identifying positions in the squad early that we know we need improvements in. We know we need another left back. We've addressed it already. We know we need centre backs this summer. We've addressed it already, or we're hoping to address it quickly. I like that. And I think the quicker we can get these players in, especially with the amount of turnover we are going to have this summer, because there are big players in that dressing room going to depart, like a Borna Barisic, a Kemar Roof, a Ryan Jack. I know these guys haven't played as much as they have in previous years this season, but they have been around the squad for a while. They will have to be adequately replaced. So it's good to see us just identifying things early, getting in where we can. I'm sure there will be deals that happen in the last week of the window. It always happens, but I think as much of that squad that we can build early. That's certainly a positive sign. And I think we always have to remember European qualifiers are early. So we need to get as many of these boys in as possible, try and build that chemistry between them, and hopefully start the season really positively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a positive note to end the podcast on. So thank you very much, Ross, for joining us. Thank you very much, everyone who's tuned in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any of our coverage of the Scottish Cup final. And as we head through the summer, more transfer discussion, more transfer news, and more transfer reaction from us here at TII. If you enjoyed the video, please do like and share if you can. It does help us massively. We're all looking forward. I think looking forward might be a bit of a stretch, but we're all heading towards the Scottish Cup final tomorrow in hope that Rangers will make it a cup double this season. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening and watching. And until next time, goodbye.